Hey, it's a busy holiday week, and during this week, we are bringing you a look back at some of the most compelling stories and conversations we've covered for you in 2024. It's 24 in review.
This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
Featuring former FBI Special Agent and Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, Robin Dreeke.
Kevin Franke, the ex or estranged husband of Ruby Franke, speaking out about what went on in their relationship together while they were together, while they were separated, and Jodi Hildebrandt's involvement in their relationship. Joining me to discuss, Robin Dreeke, retired FBI special agent. Big data dump just the other day, interviews, audio, diaries. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And we saw a very interesting Kevin Franke being deposed and questioned by police very early on in the investigation. And he seemed to be fairly clueless as to the depths of what the hell was happening at Jodi Hildebrandt's home. I guess the first question is, do you buy it? Do you think he really, truly was that clueless that he appeared on camera?
Boy, it's tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
The only thing that strikes me of this entire thing is the Hildebrandt cult that she started. She found a victim in Ruby, and they formed an anti-male cult from what it sounds like, as Franke was saying. Mm-hmm. And again, when you're looking at this behavior pattern of really unhealthy behavior that manifested eventually in the abuse of the children, it just didn't happen from 0 to 100 overnight. There's an escalation of really strange, unhealthy behaviors that was happening between Franke and Hildebrandt. And the husband was, boy, you use that word victim. He's a victim of it as well. But you were hoping that as a father, he'd be able to do more than he was able to do as well. So,
well, what was shocking to me about a lot of it is that there was no separation agreement. There was nothing legally stopping him from going and seeing his kids when she took them away.
Right.
He seems to just go off of the story of, well, we made this verbal agreement, and I thought the only way I get to see them again is if I stay on Jodi's good side, and I'm paraphrasing. And then that's the way to do it. I mean, that's not the way to do it. I mean, you're dealing with someone who's not really mentally that well, and I think Kevin may be in that camp as well. And you're not going to go after seeing you have rights. You can bring an attorney into this to have visitation rights, but he seemed to very much just kind of cower to Ruby very early on. Like, well, you want to do this? You do that. Okay. Maybe I'll get back in your good graces someday. It just seemed really bizarre to allow your children to go off in that sort of a manner without, I don't know, much of a care.
So it's interesting, our phraseology we have here. You're right. To you and I and people that are dealing with healthy relationships, it's completely bizarre. But here's some conjecture in here. Remember, Hildebrandt was recommended as his counselor by their church. Mm-hmm. I think the church is playing a large role in here in their sect of it, because when you have a group think going on and you are the one person, say you're the husband, say you're the father, and you're now surrounded by a tribe of people that are saying you're the bad apple, you're the bad egg, and then you have the charismatic Hildebrandt as a cult leader, that's kind of leading the charge against you and your behavior and what you're doing. You don't even think in legal terms. You think in terms of this is what this entire collective is saying, mm-hmm. and there's a lot of brainwashing involved when you're dealing with those types of unhealthy behavior. I don't know if he was even potentially cognating that he actually had legal action, because he's so thinking that I don't have any action because this is what the group is saying I can and can't do. So I think it might have just been and we've seen this before. I mean, groupthink is a very, very powerful influence of our behavior. And I think we keep focusing on Hildebrandt and Franke on this one, but I think there's a network around them that was supporting the behaviors they had. Because otherwise, you're right, you only have two crazy people that are abusing their children. Why didn't someone else step in? Well, because generally people don't step in when everyone around them is, I wouldn't say complacent, but they're aware of it, and they're taking sides. And when the husband doesn't have a side that's on his side, he feels disempowered.
Yeah. I mean, it's like not seeing the forest through the trees. I mean, it's all right there in front of him, but he's just, he's so stuck over here. Like, well, this is my only option. This is, So it is You see that in abusive behaviors, abusive relationships and such. It just happened in that sort of dynamic. What did you make of, this is what kind of puts everything into question for me of anything he's saying. He literally said, I can't explain some of the stuff that happened while we were there. We're talking paranormal stuff here. We're talking like ghostly stuff. And he's claiming this as fact of plates flying off of the shelves and smashing against the wall at full speed, hearing crashing sounds from the basement while they were upstairs. I mean, it sounds crazy. I mean, it really does. We're getting into ghostly territory here on a very serious case of child abuse. And I'm sorry, it's like there's rooms for that, but I don't know that this is one of them. Why go there with that? Or does he really believe that these sort of things were happening? I mean, or were they happening?
He believed it enough not to take action.
Yeah.
I mean, so whether by rationalizing his inaction today or by his fear of that action of what he thought he saw then, regardless, it kept him from taking action that was in his children's best interest. And what's all this say? Was a lot of unhealthy crazy going on there. Yeah,
I mean, I guess if you're thinking that is happening legitimately, there's a lot of things you can rationalize in this.
Fear is one of the greatest motivators of human beings. You know, when you fear for your safety, you fear the actions you're going to take because you fear reciprocity for those actions. You're not then thinking that if I just take one, like you said, the forest through the trees, if I just take one step outside this forest, just one step here, the fog clears and I have clarity and I can do X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. But he became so engrossed, whether by design of Hildebrandt or because he legitimately is a little nutso himself, my vernacular, but it keeps you from taking those actions that are in the best interest of the children.
Yeah. And he certainly did not. And in the end, was shocked when the children were not allowed to go back with him. Just a bizarre case all around, with a lot of undertones, scarily, of almost Daybell and Vallow. If you listen to some of those phone calls between Kevin and Ruby and other individuals who have been unidentified in some of those phone calls, you have an extreme belief system that goes kind of back to the zombies, where they were the Daybell, where Lori Vallow Daybell was talking about the kids being zombies. You were a step away from them. God knows what else was going to happen, but they were saying and thinking the kids are possessed or evil spirits, and then we got to get them out through these horrible, horrible means. And they were well into the process of doing it. So I'm not a cult expert, but we from the cases you and I have covered, I've read a decent amount about them. Yeah. And so here's some elements, and this is why you said it has similar undertones as Daybell, because Daybell was cult-ish. Mm-hmm. And so is this. And here's why. Here's things that you need for the definition of a cult. You need a charismatic leader at the front of it that is the energy behind it. We have that. Hildebrandt and Lori Daybell herself. 2, you need cloistered people that are not allowed outside contact or limited outside contact, so you can keep the only information flow they get about how to interact with the world is very controlled. That's happened in both those cases. Yep. 3, do harm to others. In other words, they benefit from doing harm to others. Both those cases, exactly the same. Financial gain by their actions. Yep, we got to have that there as well. And then there's also a sexual nuance or undertone in these cases as well. And what we're seeing from some of we're not having claims of it, but some of the weirdness between Hildebrandt and Jodi, and Frankie, just there's a lot of strangeness there. So we're hitting on all the peaks here of potential cult-like activity, which generally becomes extreme. We've seen people all over the place that are completely healthy, normal people living out normal, healthy lives that become victims of this kind of mentality because they start out with exactly what we've seen in both those cases, love bombing. Mm-hmm. And then once you get love bombed and you get sucked into the love bomb, well, then we start having a little bit of trauma bonding going on that we talked about. Yep. And so I think that's what we saw. We saw a love bombing. We saw a grooming from a cult-like figure in both those cases, both Daybell and Hildebrandt. Again, my
my YouTube commando hat on right there, but
yeah, they have all the ingredients, and they do. It's scary to think about what could have happened had they not been stopped where they were.
Very true.
Yeah, very.
Glass half full on. It could have been. It was as horrendous as what happened, but I think you're right. It could have, if left to its own devices without anything else happening, it could have gone much worse.
Want to listen ad-free? Want advanced access to all of our interviews before anyone else?
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
You get every episode commercial-free.
So you can binge on true crime
until you can binge no more.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts now, or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast next.